Hello there and welcome. I'm Dr. Steve, physical therapist, and this is my lecture series, PT Talks. We're going to be starting with pain and talking about why pain is a good thing. We're going to jump right into an article that I've been sharing with my clients for the last 3 years. Ever since I pulled this thing out of my mailbox and unwrapped it, it was in a plastic bag and it came from my national association. And after I finished reading this article, I asked myself, why is this not going viral? Why is this not on every, news channel and every person's mailbox? And I was really excited, and I still am really excited to share this information. And here I am on YouTube, hoping that I can share it with many more people. And I hope that you enjoy this content. So we're going to start with this part one, and we're going to go over the first few pages of this article. And then this is going to be a multi-video segment here. And so I wanted to originally talk about pain and help people understand why it's good and why it's evolved in a way that is really protective in nature for us, and it's about our survival. And we don't really learn about a lot of this stuff. We can't fault ourselves for not knowing. Unless you go into a profession like physical therapy or some kind of healthcare profession, we really don't learn this stuff. And that's another driving force as to why I want to do this video and this segment and try to reach more people so that they can understand and learn. We're really, I think as humans, we've thrown pain under the bus, and it's bad, and we have painkillers. And look at the opioid epidemic, and it's a crisis, and it's real. And so I think the first step, whenever you don't know about something and you don't know maybe necessarily the basics and some of the leading science behind something, it leads to misunderstandings and mismanagement. And so I really want to help get the word out, spread the word with my other colleagues who are doing this now. And so let's jump right into pain, part one. The mechanisms of pain are both physical and psychological. And I think that's the very first point I want to make here with this article, is that we talk about pain and think about pain a lot as being purely physical. What we miss, and what we're going to talk about a lot in this video, is that it's also psychological. There's a huge psychology that feeds into your pain perception and your experience with pain. Here's what PTs, physical therapists like myself, and PTAs, these are physical therapy assistants, need to know in order to gauge treatment strategies. So the very first thing I want to cover, I want to talk about this paragraph really right here. Pain is a physiological process, not an anatomical one. It's so important to understand too, as just a basis for understanding pain, is that when you talk about physiological, we're talking about the inner workings of the body and how they work together, right? So the idea of the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments, right? All of the internal components of the body, and the nervous system and the receptors, the cells, right? The receptor cells, the nerves. Then playing into that's the nervous system, the spinal cord and the brain, and all of the rest of the psychology that plays into this as well. Not an anatomical one, right? So we talk about anatomy, and that's just, if you read the beginning of this article, it talks about a gruesome leg injury that happened to an NCAA basketball player years ago, where 6 inches of bone were sticking out of his skin when he came down and landed on his leg awkwardly. So we talk about pain a lot of the times as just that. It's like, wow, that right there is anatomy, and that has to hurt. We need to dig a little bit deeper and talk about, this player. Actually, he says he didn't have any pain. He really wasn't having any pain when it happened. So what was the cause behind some of that? Let's talk about some of those things deeper in this article. So Joe Brentz, he's a PT just like myself. He is a spokesperson for APTAs. That's American Physical Therapy Association. That's our national association as PTs. Hashtag Choose PT campaign. He wrote 9 things you should know about pain. We're going to cover all 9 of these in this video series, but I want to talk in this video about the first two, which are super important. The first one is pain is output from the brain. And that's a really big statement, and that's a lot to wrap your head around if you've never heard that or thought about it in that sense. But pain is always an output from the brain. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means coming up here. But number two, the degree of injury does not always equal the degree of pain. That's another really important point. Just store these away for now. We're going to cover these a little bit more as we go through. But the degree of injury does not always equal the degree of pain. Two really, really super important points to understand. So Brentz goes on further and says, while we used to believe that pain originated within the tissues of the body, we now understand that pain does not exist until the brain determines it does. You do not have pain without a brain. And that's a really simple statement, but it's not something that we think about until we dive deeper and really start understanding that the brain is really the seer and doer of all things. And we don't experience pain until the brain has determined, make that person consciously aware of that pain, right? As a danger signal, as a means of survival, the brain, I tell my clients this all the time, the brain loves you and the brain really wants your survival. And what's the probably evolutionary kind of principle behind a lot of this is survival, is trying to make it to the next day to what? Continue the species, right? So that's a lot of what we talk about whenever I'm talking about this stuff with my clients, friends, family. The brain is there as a means of survival and helping you to maximize your chances to make it to the next day, because the longer you survive, the more able you are then to continue the species. So we go a little bit further. The brain uses a virtual roadmap to direct an output of pain to tissues that it suspects may be in danger. So that's another point we're going to talk a lot about here in this video, is that it doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to be a real danger, a real threat, or real damage to the tissue. It could just, it may be danger. It may be dangerous. It may be something that the brain thinks is a threat. This process acts as a means of communication between the brain and the tissues of the body to serve as a defense against possible injury or disease. So we think of a lot of the times as pain as just being something that, I hit my hammer with, I'm working and just hit my thumb with the hammer. And, wow, that hurts, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that damage occurred at the local level of the thumb. It can be, but a lot of the times too, there is a huge amount of pain there. So if the tissue is actually damaged, you can have pain. If there is no damage, you can have pain. And so that's really what we're talking about here, is that pain is there a lot of the times as a good thing, because it's kind of telling you, don't do that again. That's going to hurt your thumb. It's going to render it maybe something that you can't use, which is, again, more about survival, being able to use your body. And at that point, it's kind of like the analogy I give to a lot of my clients with the stove. As I sit here in my kitchen, the stove, as anybody has probably experienced this, is getting your hand too close to something hot. And what do? You pull it away real quick. And you felt that sensation to pull away because that heat was potentially damaging to your body. And, everything comes into play there, back to physiological mechanism. Everything comes back into play there to get you out of danger. So the pain is a warning signal. It's a danger signal to get you away from something. Think about it if it wasn't there. Think about if the pain signal wasn't there for you. And this is where I get a lot of my people thinking about pain differently, is that if you didn't have pain when you hit your thumb with the hammer, or when your hand got close to something too hot that could damage it, we would be in a world of trouble. So I try to help people understand that pain is actually a good thing. And that's the argument I want to make. And that's how I want to try to convince some people here that a lot of people just throw pain under the bus and it's bad and we have to kill it. We have to negate it. We have to numb it. And what we really have to do is alter our behavior. And that's why pain is such an important alarm system, as we're going to talk a little bit more deeper into the article. So pain is complex. That's another thing too that we have to think about here. We're going to understand the complexities a little bit more as we move on. I love this quote though from Joe Brents. I think it sums up everything that I wanted to in this first video. Pain is necessary for our survival. It's a protective mechanism. It's an output from the nervous systems to tell us there's a potential danger to our tissues, and we need to alter our behavior. So everything that I basically just said wrapped up, summed up there very beautifully, eloquently, but simple statements. And that's the takeaway from a lot of this, is that it's about protection. It's about survival. And we need to alter our behavior. So we're going to talk a little bit more about pain and the definitions, kind of how we categorize pain here coming up. I want to make sure everybody has a good, just fundamental understanding of pain and some simple definitions. If we all can kind of share the language, it's going to make subsequent videos easier, and it's going to make just kind of generally just talking about this a little bit easier too, if we all kind of have a common definition set. So pain, I started these two areas because these are the areas that really stood out to me when I first read the article, and I wanted to share it with people. Pain often is characterized as acute or chronic. Now, that's simple, and then we're not going to get into a whole lot more complexities than that, but there is subacute pain as well that falls right in between them. But let's just, for the sake of just keeping things simple and nice, two categories here, acute and chronic, okay? So acute pain usually has lasted for less than 3 months, and it's usually associated with actual tissue damage. Now, that's not always the case, but just for simplicity here, let's just talk about it in those terms. Actual tissue damage with acute pain. Chronic pain is pain that has persisted beyond 3 months or the time needed for tissue repair. Again, not always the case, but there's always some outliers. Let's just talk about things in kind of their categories right now. It goes further to say chronic pain is your brain's perception of a perceived threat, meaning usually potential for tissue damage or tissue damage that is not actually present. And this is a hard conversation most of the time with my folks who are dealing with chronic pain. Again, anything that's lasted for longer than 90 days. And that's, again, a rough definition, in my opinion, but most of the time these people have been dealing with pain for years, and they don't understand why. And they think that they're injured. They think that they're hurt. And a lot of the times what I have to help people understand is that it's just like, say and here I am in the kitchen again, say you're chopping vegetables and you slice your thumb. What do? You clean it, right? Sanitize it, right? And then you bandage it. And then you look at it after a few days and it's looking a lot better and it's healing, right? That's the beautiful thing about the human condition. We heal, it's not immediate, but we do heal. There's a process for healing that we have within this system. And, that's one thing I have to remind my people is that, these tissues heal. So why, I get this question then, if it's healed, where is the pain coming from? Let's talk about it. After 3 months, the tissues in your body already have healed as well as they're going to. So any residual pain is no longer associated with actual tissue damage, but with the anticipation of a pain sensation based on a learned memory of prior tissue damaging experience. Here's the psychology. And this is where psychology really starts to come in and blend with some of the physical phenomena that are going on here. And it has a lot to do. It talks about memories. It talks about experiences. And I'll go a little bit deeper and talk about 2020 has been a rough year for everybody on so many different levels, but it talks about stress. It talks about anxiety. It talks about mood, sleep, diet, hydration. I mean, all the different layers that we could go into, and I plan to go into in future videos. But there's so much more than just, okay, I have this pain, I'm hurt, and this pain's just always going to be here because I'm injured. We got to think about this on a deeper level. And there's so many more layers that we have to uncover. As a PT, I think that's the most rewarding aspect of my job, is that I really get to uncover a lot of these layers little by little, start to understand individual stories and where they're coming from, what their expectations are, what their memories and experiences are, what their backgrounds are. And little by little, we start chipping away at what could be leading to these situations with chronic pain. A little bit more into the definitions here. Acute pain is your brain's attempt to protect the body from an actual threat, much like an accurate alarm system. Chronic pain, though, is a false alarm system. It may occur because tissue damage healed, but the nerves healed in a hypersensitive state, so that the nerves are sending extra danger signals to the brain. The brain then interprets these signals along with all other emotional, cognitive, environmental, and physical stressors at the same time. I talk about this example a lot with my clients, and we talk about a car alarm. And everybody's familiar with this car alarm example, but when you start talking about, if my car alarm goes off outside and I run out there and there's somebody trying to break in, it's done its job, right? Thank you to car alarm for working. But if it goes off and I hop up and jump out, side, and there's a bird on the hood and my car alarm is going off, I think to myself, wait, okay, the car alarm's working, but it's overworking. It's sensitive. It's touchy. It shouldn't go off when just a bird lands on the hood, right? It's very similar to this, carrying over to this example with the human body. And we talk about pain, we talk about the nervous system, and the nervous system having this ability to alert you of pain when there's a problem. When you start talking about chronic pain, it's much like that car alarm that's touchy and hypersensitive. Hyperreactive is another word I use a lot of the times. And we have to start thinking about these things here at the bottom of the sentence here with the all other emotional, cognitive, environmental, and physical stressors. It's so important to start uncovering some of this stuff and really digging in as to why you might have a touchy alarm system that's going off, when we really, at the extent of chronic pain, we understand that their tissues have healed about as good as they're going to, most of the tissues. Those are the big points I wanted to make in this video. And these videos, we will continue diving into this article and talking more about other aspects. Finally, acute pain is a symptom, chronic pain is a condition. We really need to get a handle on pain. I'm really excited to bring you all this content and more content. I will link this article in the description of the video. And I will also, as soon as the videos are done, I'll link those at the end of this video. I'm going to be knocking these out one after the other. And then if you like the content, I have to say this, please like and subscribe. And this has been a lot of fun for me. I hope that you've gotten something from this. Please comment below, comments, questions. I'll get to every single one of them. And I really look forward to building this up and being a go-to resource for this YouTube channel. Thank you. This has been PT Talks with Dr. Steve, your physical therapist. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.